It's time to dive in deep for why you perhaps should buy an Xbox Series S this year instead of an Xbox Series X and or a PS5. And these are reasons apart from the fact that you probably can't find the other two, even if you try. But even if you couldn't and you decided to go with the Series S, I'm going to tell you why you made a good choice, but also why it's worth upgrading from an Xbox One, One X, PS4 or PS4 Pro. And hey, maybe you're looking to upgrade from a GameCube, but no matter why you're looking for a new console, I'm going to explain why the Xbox Series S is a killer console to get right now and what the future holds for it. There's a lot of misinformation out there in telling you why you might want to buy one. I'm also going to explain any shortcomings the system has. But if you enjoy the video, then please give it a thumbs up, share it, subscribe, and leave a comment, as it really helps the video and channel get recommended to others. Stop by the Discord, but now let's get stuck in and talk about the rectangular white box. Let's do it. First up, it's all about the TV or monitor that you or your family is currently gaming on. With so much talk about 4K, 60 and even 120 frames per second these days, and those things really are fantastic, but if you don't own a 4K TV, then you'll be missing out on one of the main features of the Xbox Series X and PS5. There's a huge amount of 4K TVs in people's homes at the moment, but there's also a huge amount of 1080p displays still being used, and the Xbox Series S is really a console that caters to that demographic or piece of kit. If you use a monitor instead, one that most likely displays at 1080p or 1440p and offers 60 frames per second, then the Series S will cater to that. The Series X and PS5 will take advantage of higher resolutions, but the PS5 won't take advantage of a 1440p display. TVs that are sub 4K are cheaper, and the Xbox Series S is cheaper as well to go with that. Perfect for a secondary console, one for the kids' room or the bedroom, with your main gaming machine maybe being one of the more powerful consoles or a PC. So the Series S can't match its big brother of the Xbox Series X or the PS5 when it comes to resolutions, but it packs in a lot of what is already in the more powerful systems. One of the biggest game changers is that of the SSD, and it's all about the load times of course, but it goes beyond that when it comes to why the Series S is definitely worth purchasing and or upgrading from last gen systems, including the Xbox One X. The first thing you'll notice when booting up is the snappiness of the UI itself. The first thing you notice when booting it up is just how much quicker it is to do so, but also the snappiness of the UI itself. And I don't think either the Xbox or PlayStation consoles have great interfaces, but if they simply just get the job done without being great, then at a minimum you want this interface to be quick and responsive, and overall it is. Flicking between the different screens feels so much better now that the hardware mostly gets rid of the lagginess that plagued last gen. The speed when loading games is just the night and day difference from the shit we were putting up with last gen 2. I'll get to the other benefits in hardware soon, but the SSD is a game changer when thinking of upgrading from last gen hardware, and that includes being able to take advantage of the quick resume feature, which means you can be running multiple games concurrently and switching between them within seconds, a huge benefit of the next gen with Series S and X. Now it's time to talk about the performance, the much wanted 60 frames per second that I've mentioned in other videos, but it's the single biggest difference between last gen systems and the Series consoles and PS5 for myself. This is a big one too, as there seems to be some misinformation when it comes to the Series S performance, especially when people compare it to the Xbox One X. So simply, here's the answer to which gives you the better performance overall, and it's the Xbox Series S over the Xbox One X. The system has the same CPU as the Xbox Series X, which contributes hugely to why it increases the frame rates in games. Resolutions remain lower though, because the GPU is nowhere near as powerful as the Series X or the PS5. Without going deep into it, the Xbox One X is comparable to the Series S, so the One X will often have an image which is of a higher resolution than that of the Series S. It can also often have better visual details as well, higher res textures and all the rest, but the One X struggles greatly when pushing that detail at 60 frames per second. And when I say struggle, I mean it really can't do it. Even if the visuals were toned down, doubling the frame rate is still a huge ask, as the CPU of the One X is just dated and wasn't even very good in the early stages of last gen. If you're after better performance, then the Series S should appeal to you. In the rare circumstances where it's an option, the Series S can also output 120 frames per second, something the One X really has absolutely no chance of doing. When we talk about new products upgrading to something better, one of the greatest obstacles to doing that for the majority of people out there, whether it be to do with gaming or anything, is the cost or price of the product itself. Money or funds is a finite resource for people. Whether you have bills to pay, are at school, have a family, most people just don't spend anything and everything on what they want. So the Xbox Series S appeals in this area. The Series X costs $499 US and the Series S comes in at $299, a big saving for those wanting a next-gen experience in some areas, but also to save some money. It won't give you all the benefits of the Series X or the PS5, but it will give a lot of people enough to warrant the purchase and for them to notice the difference. And let's not forget either that you can actually find and buy a Series S much more than a Series X or PS5. I mean, I just walked into a somewhat local store, asked for one and bought it, no drama. And the cheaper price and the Series S not really catering to 4K gaming can make the system a really great secondary console, as I mentioned earlier, especially if gaming on a sub 4K TV or even on a smaller 4K TV or monitor. But that cheaper cost, of course, comes from somewhere, which I'll get to later in the video, the caveats of the Xbox Series S. So the saving that you'll get from buying a Series S instead of a Series X or PS5 leads on to the next section. That saving can pay for Xbox Game Pass for over a year, and that's at full price. It can often be found for cheaper, which extends the saving even further. So let's talk about Xbox Game Pass. And if you want even more details about the service, its best games and everything else, then just check out my other videos for a huge amount of its best games and what you should play. But the Series S can be seen as just an almost perfect Xbox Game Pass box. When you take into consideration the cost of the hardware plus this service, you are literally getting thousands of dollars of value for a fraction of what you would be spending otherwise. But you'll also get to play so many damn good games that you wouldn't have also. Again, our money is finite. We only have so much, especially when it comes to spending it on entertainment and hobbies like gaming. But for the $10 to $15 a month, depending on where you are, man, you'll have access to and be playing so many games that you otherwise probably never would have. And that's across any genre of games that you like. Xbox Game Pass is a massive deal, both in its monthly cost and just how much it continues to change how we view game ownership and how much people argue about it. And that includes the fact that you may actually buy games because you got to test them out on Xbox Game Pass first, something you may never have done. And then we get to the excellent backwards compatibility that the Xbox has. Not only the Series X or S, as it exists on the Xbox One consoles as well, but the Series systems takes it up a notch as it offers older games at higher frame rates, such as 60 frames per second. They might include HDR or a higher level of detail as well. Now, let me be very clear and upfront when it comes to backwards compatibility on the Xbox platform. I think it's worth upgrading to a Series S or X just to play the older games, as there are hundreds that can still be enjoyed. Plus the performance benefits I mentioned, but even more so for those players who may have missed out on a lot of these games from the Xbox 360 and Xbox One generations especially. Maybe you took a break from gaming, maybe you were busy with other things in life, but maybe you've seen a number of games that do interest you and that you want to play, and so you're weighing up what system you should buy. Series S is great for this, as cost is also probably a big concern for you, as you've been out of gaming so you don't know how much you may enjoy coming back to it. But the Series S does pose an issue in this area as well, which I'll get to, but the positives outweigh the negatives. When you take the Xbox Series S console itself, then pile Xbox Game Pass on top of it, plus add backwards compatibility as well, and many back-compat games are in Game Pass, then you have this powerful rectangular white box that packs a punch and offers some really great value for those wanting newer games and older games. And don't forget, Xbox Game Pass also allows you to play all of the Xbox exclusives on the service on the day they come out. And who doesn't want that? But the back-compat versions of games are based on the Xbox One S games, not the Xbox One X enhanced versions, which I find is a bit ridiculous. So even though the feature itself is just excellent, there are compromises when it comes to playing these back-compat games on the Series S. Okay, so I've dived into a bunch of reasons for why you should buy an Xbox Series S if you're in the market for one. Of course, if we strip away the cost factor, then the Series X or the PS5 is the better console, as you would expect, and it is more future-proof as well, especially if you're in the market for a 4K TV at some stage, even more so if it comes packing HDMI 2.1 so you can experience more 120 frames per second games. All of that mostly goes for the PS5 as well, but the backwards compatibility varies there when compared to the Xbox side of things. But now, I need to discuss what you're giving up if you go with the Series S. This isn't taking shots at the console either, as it's meant to be a lower cost alternative, and for someone who owns two Xbox Series X consoles, I also own a Series S, which I think is exceptional value, but also still gives a next-gen experience. But let's get to the Series S weaknesses, and the first one, and probably the one that will affect the most people, is the lower resolutions and the lower performance on some games, or most games. And sometimes it's both of them together, which shows the gulf between the Series X and the PS5 and the extra cost and power those have. You just can't escape the fact that some games can run at half the frame rate of the more powerful systems, and often running at lower resolutions too, which unfortunately creates this gulf between the systems and makes people question if they should upgrade from an Xbox One X, especially like I mentioned before. When it comes to that argument, in these situations where resolutions and frame rates are compromised, the benefit of upgrading becomes more minimal, but, and it's a big but, you do get the faster load times and overall faster storage of the SSD on the Series S, which is just a huge leap over last gen systems. But then the size of that SSD is also an issue, and overcoming that issue presents its own problem. The Series S hard drive is 512 gigabytes, but when you take into consideration the space that the system itself needs for the OS and other things, the usable space is less than that. The same goes for the Series X and the PS5, but they each come with 1 terabyte drives. So even though some of the space is reserved, it has a lot more usable space for games. And then we talk about games, and in particular, new games that have Series X and S optimized versions. Well, these can quickly fill up your storage. And when I say quick, I mean it. For example, installing, say, Forza Horizon 5, Microsoft Flight Simulator, and GTA 5 Remaster will basically fill up the whole storage of the drive. That's just 3 games. 3! And optimized games need to be run from the internal drive in the absolutely vast majority of cases. So you get benefits as the games look and run better, but your storage is being eaten alive, and that's an understatement really. Backwards compatible games and last gen unoptimized games take up vastly less space, which is a good thing, and nowhere near as much of an issue when compared to optimized games. But the Series S and X plus the PS5 lets you plug in external drives to increase your storage capacity. And again, this is both good and bad. If you're wanting mass storage, such as a 5 terabyte external to simply store games on, then they aren't too expensive, but it's still an added cost to simply run last gen and backwards compatible games from. Buying a 1 terabyte expansion card increases the cost further, but it does increase the storage as well. But you're taking the cost of the Series S console and adding additional costs, which is taking you closer to an Xbox Series X or PS5's price. Yes, you won't get the mass storage of a mechanical hard drive, but you're also going without the much better GPUs and more RAM that makes games run so much better when optimized for the hardware. So without an external drive to store games on, you could be re-downloading games very regularly, which can be a pain in the ass depending on your internet connection and how many people are using the console and how many different games everyone is playing. Re-downloading those can literally take hours and hours per game. So some sort of external storage device is kind of an absolute necessity for myself. But there's also what seems like the constant game updates that get dished out, so internet data allowances can just add to the problem. The other issue about the Series S is that it doesn't include a disk drive. So if you're wanting to pick up physical bargains, then you're simply at the mercy of the Xbox store when it comes to deals. The smaller hard drive, no disk drive, the differences start to add up, even without the differences in performance and resolution. But even with these shortcomings, many people won't even see the issue that I and many others will easily see because they may just play a handful of games. And if that's the case, then it's still a good choice to upgrade over last gen. Believe me, I own multiple consoles on all Xbox gens. Overall, the Series S is a great upgrade over any of the last gen systems. If you're really hanging out for a Series X or a PS5, but you just can't find or buy one, then the Series S is still a good choice if you're going to buy one of the more powerful systems later on anyway. And if you're really into the technical side of things and have a 4K TV, then you'll probably upgrade to one of those at some stage. So there's a look at buying the Series S when compared to the Series X and PS5, and I have no regrets in buying Microsoft's weak console, as it's a really good system for cheaper. And that's the main argument for it. Expect differences, but it's still great value in a variety of situations. But please let me know what you think of the Series S, the X, the PS5 down in the comments. Are you happy with them or disappointed? Leave your answers down below, give the video a thumbs up, subscribe, and give it a share, plus subscribe to the Discord, and I'll see you on the next video.